Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the interweb. Today, we're going to be talking about Resident Evil 8. It's a great Wednesday to be talking about Resident Evil 8. It's very cold. But with that being said, today we are going to run off of the news from August that confirmed Resident Evil 8 was already in early production, and today we're going to be talking about why we realistically will see it in 2019 and why we realistically could not see it in 2019. So with that being said, play the intro. So 2019 is going to be a huge year for Resident Evil, and if you have not seen one of my videos before, or this is your first episode tuning in to our predictions for 2019, every December at the end of the year we talk about gaming news and a certain game every couple days about why we could or could not see that game in the new year. So this episode is focused on Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil 8 realistically may not show up in 2019 for the simple reason that Resident Evil 2 remake launches in January. It launches in just over a month. I am ecstatic for it. I got the collector's edition. We'll be doing a full unboxing of it. We might do a full live stream of it. I'm not sure. Either way, I am extremely excited for that game to come out. That's a game I've been looking forward to for a very long time. But with that being said, that game has been in production for 3 to 4 years, maybe even longer. That's just what we know from the first time this game showed up. Because Resident Evil 8, as far as we know, it just started production in August, early production, and Resident Evil 3 Remake is already in production as well, which was confirmed by a Capcom insider the other day. The Resident Evil 8 was confirmed by Capcom employees in a live stream a couple months ago in August. So Resident Evil 8 we may not see, just for the simple fact that mainline Resident Evil games take a very long time to create. Even a game with as simplistic of a level design as Resident Evil 7 took 4 years for them to pump out that we know of. We don't know how early it was. It could have been starting development while Resident Evil 6 was already being, towards the end of its development. Nobody knows. So we may not see Resident Evil 8 in 2019. What I think is realistically going to happen is at E3 2019, or maybe Xbox Live or whatever Xbox's big thing's called, that we're going to see Resident Evil 3 Remake get a big announcement. Yes, it's already been confirmed by Capcom's insiders and Capcom employees, but Capcom has not thrown out a trailer yet for it. So I do believe at E3 2019 we are going to see a trailer for Resident Evil 3 Remake. And I believe Resident Evil 3 will be the Resident Evil game for 2020, because Capcom has said that they want to make Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, and Mega Man a yearly release. They want to make a new game every single year. I don't know if they mean Devil May Cry this year, Resident Evil next year, then Mega Man and repeat, or if it's Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, Mega Man, Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, Mega Man, and just over and over that way. We don't know yet. They kind of left us out in the blue with it. So that is what I believe will actually happen with all this news, and I believe we will be getting Resident Evil 8 very soon, but I could see it being a PlayStation 5, Xbox Scarlet launch title. That's what I realistically see it coming to. But now, let's talk about what we realistically could see Resident Evil 8 in 2019. If we see it, it's going to be fully just a trailer in my opinion, because of Resident Evil 3 Remake. And maybe this game's gonna come out before the remake. Maybe they're just gonna be flipping assets and make the whole game work out in a completely different fashion. Because I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of unique areas inside of Resident Evil 7 that they could flip enough assets to make a quick turnaround. Because when it comes to creating video games, the art side is what takes forever. I mean, every line of code, every line of programming, and every video game ever, with the people working diligently with nothing but that, could be done in a 2-month time period. The part that takes years upon years is the art side. So if they could reuse assets from Resident Evil 7, reuse assets from Devil May Cry, they could throw together, or even Resident Evil 2 even, they could remake assets from that or reuse them, I mean. They could realistically pump out Resident Evil 8 in a timely manner for 2020. That is something that realistically could happen, but they would have to reuse a ton of assets. And with Resident Evil 7 being a reboot to the series, I don't see them doing that. I think everything's going to be original. They might reuse some script because scripts don't really matter if you reuse them or not, but I don't see them reusing art. What I see could happen, which would depend on the ending you get for Resident Evil 7, would be having the main characters join the BSAA and start hunting for all these like paranormal, extraterrestrial, zombie stuff in the Resident Evil universe, since they could be coming about to be the new Leon and Ada Wong, but that would also depend on how your game finished itself. Some people got the good ending, a lot of people got the bad ending. I hate when games have multiple endings because then there's multiple different branches that they could go off with instead of just one definitive way. So that's going to make it very hard to talk about the Resident Evil 8 story on what way they could go. Realistically though, our boy, this guy, is just going to be the main character, and it's going to be some random story that doesn't make any sense, and his entire unit is going to die, just like usual. So that's realistically how I see Resident Evil 8 going. Resident Evil 8, there's a couple more reasons why, as I stated for why it could come in 2019. That goes back to the games winning, that goes back to Capcom wanting a new Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, or Mega Man every single year. So Resident Evil 2 is obviously our Resident Evil for 2019. So Resident Evil 8 could be our Resident Evil for 2020, and then Resident Evil Remake be it for 2021. Or maybe we could get a two-hitter game, because there are a lot of games now that are just reusing things to bring back, you know, a sequel really quick. So as I said earlier, they could be reusing things and have a completely different story, because think about this, you know, the Resident Evil that we know is no longer the Resident Evil that exists. This is a whole new era for Resident Evil. Resident Evil 8 could be about a cop this time around that investigates the mansion, the manor, the whole boat, everything that happened in Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 8 could be a prequel. There was a lot of elements that suggested prequel stuff inside of Resident Evil 7, such as the camera crew, so there could be several different routes they could go. They could have you play as a cop that investigates the area, and that cop could be the new generation of Leon Kennedy. Because those of you guys who may not follow Resident Evil that close, through the canon, you know, it's already 2017 as of the last game, like realistically inside the year for that game. Leon Kennedy's getting old. Leon Kennedy's pushing 50. So they're not going to be able to have him around for much longer unless they completely reboot the series and run off of Resident Evil 2 and then just like completely ignore 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But they're not going to do that. Realistically, it's time to bring in a new hero. It is time to bring in a new hero. The BSAA said they were going to clean up the manor inside Resident Evil 7. They were going to clean up the entire world area that you played in. So Resident Evil 8, if they flipped it around, it could be, you know, cleaning out the entire world. It could maybe even be kind of like a Saw-like game, because you know the brother, the son in Resident Evil 7, he was working with the BSAA. He was feeding them information and pretending to be crazy. So realistically, they could have Resident Evil 8 based around him and trying to, I guess, survive their whole little family thing. So there's a lot of different ways this game could turn about. I'm not sure if I'm making a whole lot of sense about it, but there's a lot of different ways that we could realistically and realistically could not see it. What do I personally think? I personally don't think we're going to be seeing Resident Evil 8 in any form of the manner in 2019. I think it'll be a game we'll see in 2020, because I do believe Resident Evil 3 Remake will be our announcement for 2019, and then that'll come out in 2020, and then, you know, 8 in 2020, releases in 2021, and be a launch title on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Scarlet. That's what I realistically think, but you never know, I could be wrong. You know, maybe these employees are just telling us random stuff to get us excited over nothing. Nobody knows, there's no way of knowing for sure. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Try not to die, and I will see you in the next video.